anymore. You know, the president said that he was going to do things that he had called out in the last administration and the one before that, and that he'd be better than that. This is his opportunity. And then I want to talk to him about this tentative peace deal. You know, Paul worked with Ukraine during the Russian proxy administration there. He would disagree with that assessment of it, but he can say that for himself. And so he's got a great feel for that. You know, I mean, the show is a very simple salon effect. I try to bring people on who can help the audience understand what's going on because they're insiders.
Well, it's going to be a great show. Chris Cuomo, take it away. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. Chris Cuomo here. That's me. Welcome to NewsNation. Look, what's going on right now, this scandal, I see it differently, okay? Signal gate. As soon as they put a gate on it, all people are looking for is scalps, all right? And you know what's going to happen. One side's going to knuckle up and close ranks. The Republicans do that better than the Democrats. And the other side is going to be looking for scalps, okay? And the media is going to go like this, right? Fan the flames, fan the flames. It's about, for me, I'm looking at this situation to see who's going to be about something bigger than their own advantage. Who's going to be about something that even approximates the idea of better? And who wants to stay stuck in what has gotten us here, which is, which side's worse? Well, they're even worse. The Democrats just sent a letter, Hakeem Jeffries, leader in the House. Get rid of the Secretary of Defense. Would Hakeem Jeffries send this letter if it were a Democrat administration? Would they do it this way if the goal was something other than a takedown? Now, you answer those questions for yourself. You don't need me to do it. But we can all see what actually matters here. And what is on display for you, the way you can use this, is who is about something that even approximates principle. And if so, what is it? So Secretary Hegseth. So far, I think you got to say he's been the most disappointing, right? He thinks attacking the reporter as a MAGA enemy is enough to deflect from everything that you know happened. A reporter was on a thread he should not have been on an app no one should have been on, talking about an attack on Yemen. Okay? They were using Signal, which they should not, certainly not in this context. Okay? And he should have never been there. Now, Hegseth doesn't seem to want to say any of that, but it's the truth. And anyone who says something else than the truth is part of the problem and not about a principle that you should find worthy. Because this is the game on display. Goldberg, the reporter, wrote that Hegseth shared operation details on specific targets, weapons that the U.S. would use, and the timing of the attacks. Okay? Now, you want to pull at the details of that, fine. It doesn't change the main sentence, which is he was on it, and they shouldn't have been on it, and they shouldn't have been talking about it, and he shouldn't have been there. Okay? There's been no proof that what the reporter is reporting is false. Saying he's a lefty, saying he hates MAGA, saying his wife donates to Democrats, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change it. And here's what does change it. It would be one thing if Hegseth just doesn't believe in any kind of accountability in these kinds of situations. But he is an example of the problem with the game, because right now he is ignoring what he used to say was a matter of principle when it came to the other side. Hillary Clinton, when Hegseth was a big part of the but her emails brigade.
People have gone to jail for 1/100th of what, even 1/1000th of what Hillary Clinton did. Having her maid print out classified documents and give them to her physically, which means they were unsecured outside. I mean, it's all ridiculous. It's all over the top. It's all criminal. Any security professional, military, government, or otherwise, would be fired on the spot for this type of conduct and criminally prosecuted for being so reckless with this kind of information.
See, this is the problem with Fox in general. They're not fair brokers. And I'll show it to you again in another moment. This is why NewsNation is a worthy enterprise. You got to call balls and strikes. Okay? He's a propagandist. That's what he was doing there, exaggerating the email situation so that there could be some kind of bad consequence for the Democrats, because that's all he was about. And yes, you have that on the left too. That's why I hate both parties. So who's going to be better? Trump promised you he would. He looked at that situation and about how classified information was handled, and he told you this when he was running.
In my administration, I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. No one will be above the law.
Now what? Was it a real principle? No, it was performative. This is his chance, and I'm not asking for anybody's head. I don't believe in that, okay? As someone who's lived it and watched people I care about live it, you know, you can get your momentary satisfaction for seeing somebody canceled, seeing them lose their job, seeing them lose whatever it is, but I don't know that it makes anything better. How many reports have you seen about the places where big-face, bold-faced names were taken down for Me Too, and see how those operations are different now? Nobody does that reporting. It's just about the takedown. This is the same thing. I don't want to see people lose their jobs. I want people to be better, okay? And this is Trump's chance to be about something that's better. But his choice is to be about what makes it worse. And here it is.
The guy's a total sleazebag. The Atlantic is a failed magazine. Does very, very poorly. Nobody gives a damn about it. This gives it a little bit of a shot. And I will tell you this, that they've made up more stories. And they're just a failing magazine. The public understands that. He's a very good man. That man is a very good man right there that you criticize so strongly. He's a very good man, and he will continue to do a good job.
I mean, is he doing anything other than just, which is somewhat noble for Trump, because usually he lets people go down, right? But here he seems to be just protecting his own. But did he just tell you that the story is untrue? No. Did he tell you that they have their facts wrong? No. He's just saying they're not with me, so you should hate them and ignore everything they say. Is that what we want to be about? Would Trump be saying this if it were the Biden administration that was in this situation? Now, what's the good news for Trump? The media can only really be effective in canceling the left. Not Trump, not his people. He is truly the Teflon Don. And he's right about his base. They don't give a rat's ass what the media says if it's not flattering. Not about him, not about his administration. He is right. And his people will be fine, as long as they just keep it safe. And the Democrats don't have the numbers to turn this into another set of BS hearings. And I do think they're BS. I don't think Congress can get to the bottom of anything. I really don't. Now, to the extent that the media does matter in this, the right has that covered. They got their own troops on Fox that are explaining what happened like this.
Did you ever try to start a group text? You're adding people and you accidentally add the wrong person. All of a sudden, your Aunt Mary knows all your raunchy plans for the bachelor party. Well, that kind of happened today with the Trump administration. Well, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz accidentally added a reporter to the group text, and not a good reporter. Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic, one of the biggest hoax artists around. Well, he heard some things he probably shouldn't have, but could have been a wee bit of a security breach. But it's not like they homebrewed a server and then bleached it or kept classified documents in their garages next to their Corvette. I'm sure it won't happen again.
Seriously? That's the only place that guy could work. He's not a reporter. He's never been celebrated for anything that he's ever done, except the ratings that anyone gets in that slot. This signal thing is showing you who everyone is. And look, I know it's easy to deflect what I'm saying right now. Oh, you're hating. You can even make cat sounds, like it's a cat bite, right? But it isn't. It's just seeing it for what it is, okay? You flip the R's and the D's, Jesse Waters is never saying that. Fox is on the pound trail. They're just pounding it 24/7. If you just flip it, right? The same way MSNBC is doing it right now. I'm telling you, use it for what's actually of value to you, okay? And it's allowing you to see how people deal with adversity and what they're about in that moment. Now, the Democrats are disappointing me, okay? Someone seems to have told them that the way for them to get back on top is by being mean, that fighting means not fighting with better, but by being worse. Fire everyone. Everyone is bad because of what just happened on Signal. And that's the light touch. You want to see what the Democrats believe is going to get them to a better place? Listen to what a member of Congress just said.
We in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot ass mess, honey.
The guy's in a wheelchair. Are you kidding me? I mean, is this really what you want to applaud and what you want to celebrate as Democrats? Oh, yeah, but you just heard Jesse Water. You heard the other one. Is that who you want to compare yourself to? Look, you can write off criticism from any other of the TV yappers, and that's what I am, okay? I don't have any power. I'm not in office. I'm not here to serve, right? I'm not in a public service. I'm just a yapper. But don't you try to tell me that I don't know what works for Democrats, okay? I was raised by a lion of the left. You can say whatever you want about me. You will never take that away. And Mario Cuomo knew that being harsh or mean, this is a guy who was born in South Jamaica, Queens, fought for everything that he ever came. Everybody thought he was less than. He never went down the road you're going down now. Like somehow his victimization allows him to be cruel about everybody else. Because that's how you get parity. That's empowerment. No, it's BS. And it doesn't sell in America. This is an opportunity to show that the Trump administration is less than they need to be. And that there are better ways to get this job done. Instead, the Democrats are using it to pound on the idea that Trump just sucks and everyone around him is incompetent.
Was there any mention of a target in Yemen?
I don't remember mention of specific targets.
How about anything about timing? Ms. Gabbard.
I don't recall specific timing.
Any mention of any military unit whatsoever? Mr. Ratcliffe.
Not that I recall.
Ms. Gabbard.
Not that I recall.
Now, my problem with this is, can't the senator get the thread? See, I think it's just a gotcha game. I'm not trying to beat up on Senator Kelly. I mean, I think you got to respect him on so many different levels. But this is just a game. This is why I don't believe that Congress can get to the bottom of anything. Okay? Now, you can call me a hater, but the truth is really the opposite. I see this all as a shame because we need better out of these people. I don't recall. That's what a lawyer tells you to do so you don't get yourself stuck saying something you don't want to own. We need the Democrats to be the best version of themselves, because if we're going to be stuck in this binary system, we need a balance of ideas and interests. It can't just be about who can point the finger at the other side, most viciously. The need for better, that's what we're being starved of. Nobody wants to step up and set a new standard. Okay, that's why the best that the Trump and the circus can do is to say, yeah, but the Democrats were worse. Remember the Hillary? Remember this? Remember that? Remember this? That's all they can do. And the Democrats can just say, look how bad. That's why nothing gets better. And it's not just saying, Elon Musk and his antics. Wait for them to make actual recommendations and then have the fight over the priorities and show you're better. Instead of trying to just be mean, be strong about what matters. Like Trump undermining the courts. Why are we talking about Signalgate? Why are the Democrats going all in on that? And not the fact that the DOJ just invoked the state secrets privilege over who's on those flights as people they're kicking out of the country. That's when you exercise the state secrets privilege. So you can avoid providing the judge key evidence that he needs to see whether or not Trump disobeyed his orders, and you say you're about following the court, you're about the Constitution. That's what you focus on. Here's what National Security Advisor Mike Waltz had to say about the leak right before our show.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but of all the people out there, somehow this guy who has lied about the president, who has lied to Gold Star families, lied to their attorneys, and he's the one that somehow gets on somebody's contact and then gets sucked into this group. We're going to get to the bottom of it. I just talked to Elon on the way here. We've got the best technical minds looking at how this happened, but I don't text him. He wasn't on my phone, and we're going to figure out how this happened.
So you don't know what staffer is responsible for this right now?
Well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
You don't take any responsibility. Nobody would accept that from their child, okay? You're going after the reporter for winding up on the thread? You better prove he broke into it. And if you can't, then you're just another piece of the BS pie. That's all you are. Trump's inner circle and how they deal with crisis is something that you have to understand, okay? Former campaign chair for President Trump's 2016 campaign, the run for the White House, instrumental, Paul Manafort. Understanding what's going to happen with Ukraine and Russia, Paul Manafort, instrumental. He understands the politics on both sides. Perfect guest for these two topics tonight. Paul, thank you for joining us. Appreciate having you. I guess I'm kind of romanticizing believing that anything can be better than what we're seeing right now. As you heard me say, and as I'm sure you could assume, I'm not looking to destroy anybody over what happened with this. Thank God it was nothing communicated that got into the hands of an enemy and somebody could be hurt with it. But isn't this what's wrong with our politics, what we're seeing right now? Walls blaming a reporter for getting on the thread?
Look, you got to pull back a minute and just take a look at this whole thing. Yes, you're right about the hypocrisy of the political parties and how, depending on who's in power, the positions are this. They just flip. You're right. But this Trump administration has been the most transparent presidency, frankly, in the last 25, 30 years. I mean, the reporters are getting bored with seeing Trump as much as they have and him taking all the questions. And he didn't duck it today either. He said this was wrong. We're going to figure it out. He's given a responsibility to Walz, whose job it is to figure that out. I mean, the fact that how Godfrey got on the call, no one knows yet. They'll figure that out. What's in my mind the question is, why did he, being on the call, feel compelled to do what he did? Because frankly, reporters are embedded on secret missions all the time. They see them and they respect what's in the U.S. interest. Godfrey didn't. That's, I think, what has gotten the ire of some of the Trump people. But irrespective of that, that's really not the point. The point is, look at the policy. The policy was successful. The waterway is now open. The passage is safe. The Houthis were killed who were important to the Houthi mission. Infrastructure was taken out. That's what's gotten lost in this. I mean, what the Democrats should be attacking, if they want, is the policy. This was a mistake. This was not something that happened by
Paul,
design.
Listen, I believe it was a mistake. I believe it was a mistake. But it was a mistake they set themselves up for by not knowing how to control their comms, right? Because they were on an app that they shouldn't have been talking about this kind of stuff. And somehow the guy got on it. And look, let's be honest. You find me a reporter. I've been on embedded missions, okay, in war zones, okay, multiple times. I get that. That's not what this is. This is a guy who's a political reporter that got given privy information 2 hours before an attack. He didn't go with it when he first learned about it. He waited. So if anything, you got to give him a nod. Now, I don't know Goldberg, and I don't know why they're so anxious to destroy him. But, Paul, the policy, I'm with you. You can have your feelings about that. I'm not disputing it. I'm disputing that that's all it's about. They're attacking the reporter, and they're making it sound like they did nothing wrong here. And I think it's a big root of the problem, Paul, and I don't believe you would do that if you were in control. I don't think you'd handle this way. Well, am I wrong?
Chris, I think they did acknowledge that something was wrong. I mean, the president said
they're blaming the reporter,
and Walz has been. Well, no, he's not blaming the reporter for him being on the call. That's what he wants to find out is who. And he said it in front of the whole world. Today, he said he wants to get to why this happened, how this happened, and he's tasked the man whose responsibility it is to figure that out. So, I mean, Trump is not hiding. I mean, look at, I don't want to get into the old game. I mean, how different is this from Benghazi, for example? That was hidden away, and we lost 4 Americans in that. That was a tragedy. This was a successful policy. The president has taken responsibility for the mistake of somebody being on who shouldn't have been on, and he's tasked it. So, I mean, look, the Democrats are attacking, and you know this very well. You said it sort of a little while ago. They're attacking because they don't have any standing on issues that they can attack Trump on in their mind. They're confused. They don't know what to stand for. Should they appease the left? Should they appease the center of the Democratic Party? They're confused. And as a result, and the other thing they're confused about is Trump and they're confused about Trump's policies are making his numbers go up. And why has that happened? Because he was elected on those policies, and he's implementing those policies, and the American people recognize that. So when you see 75% approving of his border closing, or you see over 70% on the deportation of criminals, I mean, the Democrats have a problem. Attacking that is the wrong thing. They lost an election by attacking that. And so what they do, they go to process. They attack something. But Trump today said, we got to figure this out. It shouldn't have happened. And mistakes happen in government. You know that. The key is what you do about the mistakes. And in my mind, the president today, in front of the world on the camera, said, we're going to figure this out. And he tasked it to Walsh.
I know, but he's making it sound,
I don't think he was playing
They're making it sound like somebody may have done this to them. He's making it sound, and Walls is making it sound like somebody did this to them. It's not what it is. They're not victims in this situation. And you're right. Democrats created a great opportunity for Trump with how they ignored the border. And I believe in process. I believe in due process. I don't think that that's a mistake. I think how Trump is handling the removals is worthy of scrutiny. And I think the idea that you attack the courts for reviewing an executive order is kind of nonsense. And Republicans have been a part of going after presidential executive orders for Democrats many times over. And this is no different than that. But I hear your point about focusing on policy, so let's do that. Ukraine and Russia. What do you make of what we're hearing about this tentative marine peace deal? Explain to me what you think is happening and what's likely to come of it.
Look, there are several issues involved in getting a temporary ceasefire that will lead to negotiations for a permanent ceasefire. One of them is open seas of the Black Sea. To be able to safely transport oil, to transport agriculture. That we had that agreement. It broke down. It's now back in place. And today they announced that both Ukraine and Russia have agreed to have the waterways of the Black Sea be safe and not be under attack. So that's a major step. I mean, this ceasefire is not going to happen in one gulp. They're pieces, and each piece begins to create more stability. But the point is, what we're discussing here is how to bring about a peace, not how to expand a war, and that's a big deal. And what's gotten lost in the Ukraine-Russia issue, frankly, is what's the underpinning of the foreign policy that Trump is trying to accomplish here. One, he wants to bring an end to the war. He said that. Two, he thinks the bloodshed is terrible. Three, he said it's important for the United States to break the bond between China and Russia. And he can't do that if we're fighting Russia. And so this is a means to an end. It's not an end by itself, although it's an end to the war. It's part of a strategy that's much bigger than Ukraine. And it's part of how do we isolate China. And to Trump, that's worth stopping the fighting, ending the killing, and beginning to break up that relationship is worth what he's putting into it. And frankly, the success so far has been pretty astounding. I mean, we're 2 months into his administration, and we've got a partial ceasefire, and we have a framework of a peace deal in Ukraine. And that is very significant. And nobody else could have done that. I mean, that's what's important here. No one else could get where we are today here except for Trump. And why is that? Because he focuses on what has to be done, not on ideological foreign policy history, and keeping the enemies of the Cold War in a freezer. He knows to get peace, you got to deal with Putin. To deal with Putin, you got to talk to him. To attack Putin is not necessarily going to get you to sit down with Putin. And so this process has worked very well. Today's Black Sea announcement is very significant. I think you're going to see very quickly the infrastructure and the energy infrastructure, some of the key mining areas are going to become safe zones again. And we're going to be able to then focus on some of the parameters of a deal, which are the territory, which are, what kind of security guarantees are going to happen. Now, Putin is not rolling over for Trump. And Trump is not rolling over for Putin.
Nope.
But Trump has a process he's following. He's got a process, and that process has gotten us to further than it's gotten in anybody in the last 4 years, actually 6 years, because you can go back to Crimea, and it's gotten a good start of people talking to each other who can resolve this conflict.
Paul, I appreciate your perspective on it. You know the players and you know what's going on, and the rest of us will watch it play out. I don't know how much of it is Trump and how much he's delegating. I know Witkoff is a lot of the formula as well, but I appreciate you laying it out. Thank you very much, as always.
You're welcome, Chris.
All right, bud. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Coming up. Medicaid. We talk about it as it's really a federal thing, but it's really just as much about how the states do with it. And should a state be using Medicaid to pay for illegal immigrants? And if so, how much? California Governor Gavin Newsom, I've invited him on a lot. He doesn't want to come on. So now I got to talk about him instead of talking to him. That's not my choice. That's his. Is it true that the governor of California is coming close to bankrupting the state system because of what he's doing for illegal immigrants? Next.
Thanks for listening to News Nation on the Go. I'm Dan Abrams. To find America's fastest growing cable news network on your screen, go to joinnn.com.
Kevin Kiley. He claims that, the state's going to need a massive bailout to shore up the state's Medicaid program. We also have another member of Congress from California, Democrat Brad Sherman. And before we begin, thank you both for taking the opportunity to come on with a member of the other party and show the audience that we can be reasonable and not just right and left. So let's talk about your state, but then let's talk about what it means for the country. Kevin, I'll start with you. Brad, thank you for joining us as well. What is your concern about what's happening in California?
Well, thanks, Chris. My concern is that the Medicaid program is becoming insolvent in California. The cost of providing universal comprehensive coverage to every illegal immigrant in the state has ballooned. It was supposed to be a few $1 billion. It's now $9.5 billion just for this year. The situation is so dire that Gavin Newsom has just taken out an emergency loan from the general fund to cover costs. And in addition to that, he's asking the legislature to appropriate more money to cover what is overall about a $6.2 billion shortfall. So if you project this over a 10-year time horizon, we're talking about potentially hundreds of billions of dollars that's going towards free, universal, comprehensive health care coverage for every single person in our state illegally. Meanwhile, legal California residents who are on Medicaid, in a lot of cases, are not being well served by the program because the reimbursement rates are so low. In a lot of parts of the state, you just can't even get an appointment with a doctor. So it's a very clear example of how we're taking funds that could be used to provide better access and care for our own residents, and instead using it to further entice folks to come to our state illegally.
So, Brad, this was a big macro issue in the last election, is how Democrats were deferring to people who aren't here legally and straining the system. People would hear about the emergency rooms, the schools, all the public, access services. So how do you understand what's happening in California, and what does it mean to you in terms of the overall structure of what's happening with Medicaid?
California is fine. We rely significantly on taxing wealthy people on capital gains. The depression in the stock market will hurt California over the next 10 years. You cannot treat a family by only treating some family members. If you don't treat COVID in a woman without documents, then her children who are U.S. citizens are going to get COVID. And that's going to be much, much worse. To put this idea that the state of California is going down the tubes and it's undocumented immigrants that are the reason is simply absurd. California is going to do fine, and we're going to make sure that the people who live in California is healthy. Also, it's absolutely wrong to say that every undocumented immigrant gets Medicaid. Or Medi-Cal, as we call it in California. The rules for eligibility do not say, well, if you're here illegally, you get special treatment. But we do make sure that the people who live in the city of Los Angeles have the basic health care that they need so that we all don't get infectious diseases.
Kevin, what's your response?
Well, it is absolutely true that every illegal immigrant who would otherwise meet the income threshold for Medi-Cal is given comprehensive coverage in California. And if this is the right policy, it raises the question, why is California the only state in the country that doesn't it? There's no other state that has come close to what California has done. And the reason other states haven't done this is because it is fiscally unsustainable and because what has happened where the cost has absolutely spun out of control was utterly predictable. In fact, it actually costs more to provide coverage in a lot of cases for an undocumented person than for a legal resident. For example, because prescription drug rebates that exist at the federal level, well, the federal government is able to negotiate those rebates don't exist when you're providing coverage to illegal immigrants using only state funds. And so this is a policy that absolutely has to go.
We balanced our budget in California.
Brad, I give you the last word. Go ahead.
We balance our budget every year in California. Now, the federal government can't because you have these enormous tax cuts that were locked in 2017. Republicans haven't cooperated with us in getting rid of them, and now they want to extend them and make them bigger. And the result will be the instruction to the Energy and Commerce Committee that it must cut nationwide Medicaid by $880 billion. So we balance the budget in California every year. This federal government wildly in deficit, now going to be incredibly fiscally irresponsible under a budget plan that every Democrat voted against. We're doing fine in California. The federal government has really big problems.
One thing I'd love to talk about another day, but I bet you both agree on, I think the federal law should be you don't get to go home if it's not budgeted and balanced. I think you got to get back to that it's got to be a mandate of law that the federal budget has to be balanced. Otherwise, you don't get to go home and you don't get paid. Congressman Kevin Kiley, thank you for making the case. Congressman Brad Sherman, thank you for making the case. You both appreciate it. Thank you for coming on together.
You bet. Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
4 minutes and 30 seconds. So you got someone considered to be a rising star in the Democratic Party, Jasmine Crockett. And I do think that she has some significant political skills, okay? But calling a guy in a wheelchair Governor Hot Wheels? Seriously? Bernie Sanders and AOC on the road fighting oligarchy? Self-described socialists? Is this really what we want to be about in this country? And is this the key for Democrats? A man who ran for president as a Democrat, ditched it to start the Forward Party, Andrew Yang, gives me his much more intelligent take on the state of play in that party.
This is Cuomo on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app. Or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot ass mess, honey.
At the Human Rights Campaign, no less, Texas member of Congress, Democrat Jasmine Crockett, making fun of a guy in a wheelchair, the Republican governor who's paralyzed from the waist down. Seriously? It's not the Democratic Party I was raised by. Not in, not part of its greatness, never was, never will be. Can you imagine Elijah Cummings saying something like that, or John Lewis, or Mario Cuomo, or Bill Clinton? Wow. Now you got AOC and Bernie Sanders, two self-described socialists out on the road. This is what the Democrats want to be seen as? You want to fight the oligarchy. This is how? Former Democratic Party presidential candidate, founder of the Forward Party, Andrew Yang. Andrew, are you the guy who told them, go out there and start saying a lot of mean shite and you'll get back on top?
It wasn't me, it was the algorithm, Chris. But the fact is now you have incentives to try and get attention by any means necessary. It'll increase your following, your email list, get you those small dollar donations. And so it's little wonder that at this point, there's a bit of a competition for attention.
What did you think when you saw Bernie and AOC going out there with their new version of Fight the Man?
No, I appreciated that they were getting in front of voters, that they were trying to lead a grassroots movement. The problem is that what's going to happen is a lot of primary challenges to incumbent Democrats because there's a lot of anger and frustration over the fight against Trump and Musk. Their frustration really should have been manifest in January of 2024 when there was a chance to have a competitive primary for Joe Biden. I think that's actually the main failing that has led the Democratic Party to this juncture. And now everyone's blaming Chuck Schumer because he was put, in my view, in a difficult situation.
Well, look, you can't blame Schumer. Shutting down the government sucks. And the Democrats have had high ground on that. They didn't have a better deal to have. They don't have the numbers to force one. And, you know, he did what he had to do, which is what the Democrats have always celebrated. You use the right word, fight. What do you think fighting needs to look and sound like for the Democrats?
Well, this is the fundamental problem, Chris, where reps are going to town halls and saying, hey, it's the courts and then it's voting for new representatives in November of 26. And voters are saying that's not good enough. We need you to fight now. We need you to protest. We need you to do things that show how impassioned you are. And a lot of representatives are looking at this saying, okay, like, what is this move you want to make? To your point, if Chuck Schumer had actually led a shutdown of the federal government, you would have had hundreds of thousands of furloughed federal employees. You would have had a stock market crash, in my opinion, a recession kick off, millions of Americans in distress. My joke was that, look, if you're going to be for a shutdown of the government, then you need to have a $10 billion GoFundMe to fund federal employees keeping a roof over their head over the next number of days. But that's not something that a lot of the Democratic grassroots activists want to hear. Right now, the Democratic Party, unfortunately, the responsible thing to do, in my view, was to keep the government open. But that's not the message that voters want to hear right now.
I think that they're making a mistake of a preposition. Fight, always, always. This is a country of fighters. But there's a difference of fighting against and fighting for. And I think when Democrats are at their best, it's what they're fighting for, and that they have better ideas and better ways to get it done. And Trump gives you opportunities to make that case all day long. That's what Signal is, right? That's what his tariff policy is. There are opportunities to say that you can do it better. And Democrats seem to be convinced that somehow there is wealth in saying he's worse.
Well, you got to fight smart, to your point, Chris. And to me, the major stumbling block for Dems, aside from the fact that you're going to have a lot of incumbents get primaried next year, but it's virtually mathematically, taken from the math guy, it's very, very difficult for Democrats to win back the Senate, which means that if you stand before crowds and say we're going to pass legislation, you're not going to be able to do so as a party unless that dynamic changes. Mm-hmm. That dynamic's not going to be determined by crowds in blue states. It's going to be determined by whether you can win a Senate race in a state that has become very inhospitable for Dems, mm-hmm. that have a 29% approval rating. So that's the unanswered question. You have to get smarter. And Ezra Klein, who a lot of Dems think is very smart, and I happen to agree, said that what you need is an infrastructure to support independent political candidates in places where Dems can't compete. A guy named Dan Osborne ran in Nebraska neck and neck with an incumbent senator, and the Republicans had to dump 8 figures into ruby red Nebraska to fend off that challenge. That's a model that needs to be followed, and that is, in my opinion, what a lot of the Dems should be talking about.
Ezra is a smart guy, but it tells you something when they're taking advice from someone who's never run a campaign before. They definitely have to get smarter. It's why I've always been very excited by you, Andrew. MATH was his acronym during the campaign. Make America Think Harder. I love it. And thank you for being with me, Andrew. We need you, and I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
All right, bud. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So, the money that comes out of you when you meet Mr. FICA and they start taking your Social Security payroll taxes, okay? I want to bring in somebody who ran Social Security under 2 different presidents, okay? And he's going to tell you what the concern is about Social Security and what the big concern is about what the Trump administration wants to do with it right now that is almost certainly going to hurt people in the name of helping.
News for All Americans is really just that. It's every voice being heard equally. Mr. President, My name is Kelly Meyer. I'm a White House correspondent for NewsNation.
What do you say to Americans who want safe streets but are concerned due process is being violated?
Being front and center at the White House gives us that unique opportunity to talk to these officials and bring them the questions that matter most to all Americans. NewsNation, news for all Americans.
I got two questions from Michael Astrew, who ran the Social Security Administration under two presidents, George W. Bush and President Obama. It's good to see you, Mike. Thank you for joining us. My first question is...
Thank you for having me on.
The specifics of what Trump wants to do, which is to have people have to verify themselves either on the internet or to walk into an office. What will that do to the 40% of claims that are done usually over the phone?
Well, we've had mounting backlogs for some time. Budgets have stayed stable. Workloads have gone up enormously. So backlogs have gotten worse and worse. This is a procedure that the agency made a decision a long time ago that the trade-off of doing that kind of work produced no real savings for the government at all. What it's going to mean is that the current problem, right now, people can't get through on the phone to make an appointment, to get into an office that they can't make an appointment for a long time. And this is going to take that problem and it's going to multiply it by a factor of 10. And if you're a member of Congress, your office is going to be flooded with people asking for constituent assistance.
Why would they do it then?
I don't know the why. I think part of it is the arrogance of very inexperienced people. And that's the cause of what I think in some ways is even the bigger problem. They don't understand the old code that the system is built on. They don't understand all the ways it's been jerry-rigged together. And what they're doing, as recently as last week, as far as I know, is they're ordering the employees to take all that sensitive data from SSA and put it on insecure platforms. And you would think with what the administration went through today, with the situation with the Houthis and the non-secure platform used to discuss the assault, that they would look at Social Security and realize if every single American had the account invaded by a foreign nation, by organized crime, and it's not just the basic information. There's information in those computers that's highly relevant to the military, to law enforcement. It would be a disaster of cosmic proportions to do that. And I know several men and women of the Social Security Administration that have quit in the last week or two rather than do what they're being told to do by DOJ. They're heroes.
So, Michael, let's see what they do. And as soon as I know what the actual policy is, I'm going to call you and have you come back so you can help us understand it. But I wanted to set the table so that people know what's happening. Thanks for joining me.
Okay. Well, you know where to find me now.
All right. Thank you. Michael Astrew. I'll be back when we'll be back, too, right after this break.
Thanks for listening to NewsNation on the go. I'm Marnie Hughes. We're here for you 24/7 on the NewsNation app or on your Alexa. Just say, play NewsNation.